Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Discovery, watching the stars through the main window. His ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 months, looking for new worlds and new life. Jake was a tall man with brown hair and tired eyes. He had been exploring space for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like what appeared on his screens that morning. "Captain, we have something big coming toward us," said Lieutenant Danny Walsh from his station. His voice was shaking a little. "It's huge, sir. Much bigger than anything we have ever built." Jake walked over to look at Danny's screen. The object was massive, like a floating city made of dark metal and bright lights. It was 10 times bigger than the Discovery. Behind it, more ships appeared, each one bigger than the last. "Try to talk to them," Jake ordered. "Send them our standard greeting message." Communications Officer Lisa Carter worked at her controls. She was a smart woman who spoke 7 languages, but she had never tried to talk to aliens before. "I'm sending the message now, Captain. It says we come in peace and want to be friends." The alien ship answered quickly. A voice came through the speakers, speaking perfect English, but with a strange accent. "Small human vessel, you will stop and prepare to be boarded. You are now prisoners of the Zephyrian Empire." Jake felt his heart beat faster. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Discovery. We are explorers, not enemies. We want to talk peacefully." "Peace is not an option," the alien voice replied. "Your species is weak and primitive. You have no right to travel in space. Prepare to surrender or be destroyed." Lisa looked at Jake with wide eyes. "Captain, what do we do?" Before Jake could answer, the alien ship fired a bright beam of light that hit the Discovery. The ship shook and sparks flew from several control panels. The aliens were not trying to destroy them, but they were showing their power. "Their weapons are much stronger than ours," reported Chief Engineer Pete Williams from the back of the bridge. Pete was an older man who knew everything about the ship's systems. "If they wanted to destroy us, we would already be dead." Jake made a hard choice. "Lower our shields and let them board us. We need to learn about them, and fighting will not help." 20 minutes later, alien soldiers walked onto the Discovery's bridge. They were tall creatures with bodies that looked like they were made of blue crystal. Their skin sparkled in the light, and they moved with perfect grace. Each alien carried a weapon that hummed with energy. The leader of the aliens was bigger than the others. He wore a golden helmet that covered most of his face. When he spoke, his voice was deep and cold. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Imperial Fleet. Your ship and crew now belong to the Zephyrian Empire. You will come with us to meet our leaders." "I am Captain Morrison," Jake said, trying to stay calm. "We represent the United Earth Government. We have over 8 billion people on our home world and colonies on dozens of planets." Admiral Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter. 8 billion insects. The Empire controls 400 worlds and trillions of subjects. Your numbers mean nothing. Lisa stepped forward. She had been chosen for this mission because she was good at talking to different kinds of people. "Admiral, we want to learn about your empire. Perhaps we can help each other." "Help?" Vextar's crystal face seemed to change color, becoming darker. "Primitive species do not help the Empire. They serve the Empire or they die." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. "What do you want from us?" "You will come to our command ship. You will speak to our Supreme Chancellor. He will decide if your species lives or dies." The aliens took Jake, Lisa, and Dr. Ben Rogers, the ship's science officer, to their massive vessel. The inside of the alien ship was like walking through a palace made of crystal and metal. Everything was huge and beautiful, but also cold and frightening. They were brought to a large room where a giant screen showed the face of another alien. This one wore a crown made of silver crystal and had eyes that glowed like stars. "I am Supreme Chancellor Kilveth," the alien on the screen said. "You are the first humans I have seen. You look even weaker than I expected." Lisa spoke carefully. "Chancellor, we come from a peaceful civilization. We explore space to learn and make friends." "Friends?" The Chancellor's laugh was like breaking glass. "The Empire does not have friends. The Empire has subjects and enemies. Which will humanity choose to be?" Jake stepped forward. "We choose to be neither. We want to live in peace and leave each other alone." The room became very quiet. All the alien guards turned to look at Jake. Chancellor Kilveth's face on the screen became very still. "You choose neither?" the Chancellor said slowly. "No species has ever said that to the Empire before." "Then maybe it's time they did," Jake replied. Chancellor Kilveth was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice full of anger. "You will return to your home world. You will tell your leaders that the Zephyrian Empire demands complete surrender. You have 7 of your days to decide. If you refuse, we will destroy every human world and kill every human being." "And if we agree?" Lisa asked. "Then you will live as our slaves forever." Jake looked at the alien leader on the screen. "We will take your message to our government. But I can tell you now what their answer will be." "And what is that, primitive human?" Jake stood as tall as he could and looked directly at the screen. "They will tell you the same thing I am telling you right now. We are not your subjects, and we are not your enemies. We are free people, and free people do not bow to tyrants." The Chancellor's face became darker with rage. "Then you have chosen war. We will come to your worlds with fire and death. Your species will learn what happens to those who defy the Empire." The screen went dark. Admiral Vextar ordered his guards to take the humans back to their ship. As they walked through the crystal corridors, Dr. Rogers whispered to Jake, "Captain, I noticed something about their bodies. The crystal structure makes them very strong, but it might also make them fragile in certain ways." "What do you mean?" "Crystals can shatter if you hit them at the right frequency, like breaking glass with a high note." Before Jake could ask more questions, they were back on the Discovery. The alien ships moved away, but not before Admiral Vextar sent one final message. "Your ship is too small and slow to warn your people in time, but we will let you try. It will make their fear greater when we arrive." Jake watched the alien fleet disappear into space. He knew they had just started something terrible, but he also knew that humanity had faced terrible things before and survived. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "Maximum speed." As the Discovery raced through space, Jake thought about the alien Chancellor's words. The Empire expected humans to choose between being subjects or enemies. But Jake knew there was a third choice, one that the Empire had never faced before. The choice to simply say no. The Discovery arrived at Earth 3 days later. Jake Morrison had pushed his ship harder than ever before, and the engines were smoking when they reached orbit. He sent an emergency message to Earth Command before his ship even stopped moving. Within an hour, Jake stood in the biggest meeting room in the United Nations building in New York. The room was full of the most important people on Earth. President Ryan Walsh sat at the head of the table, his face serious and tired. Next to him sat Defense Secretary Kate Miller, a tough woman who had spent 20 years in the military. "Tell us everything," President Walsh said. Jake explained what had happened. He told them about the massive alien ships, about Admiral Vextar, and about the Empire's demand for complete surrender. When he finished, the room was completely quiet. General Alex Parker was the first to speak. He was an old soldier with gray hair and many scars. "How many ships did you see?" "At least 50 in the first group," Jake replied. "But the aliens said their empire controls 400 worlds. They could have thousands of ships." Senator Carl Thompson, a fat man with a nervous voice, stood up quickly. "Then we have to surrender. We cannot fight an enemy that big." "Sit down, Thompson," said Admiral Susan Blake. She was the commander of Earth's space fleet, a small woman with steel. In her voice, "We have 57 combat ships. Not many, but each one is crewed by humans who will not give up easily." Defense Secretary Miller pulled up numbers on the big screen. "Our weapons are not as advanced as theirs, but we have advantages they don't know about. We are fighting for our homes and our freedom. That makes us dangerous." Dr. Ben Rogers, who had come to the meeting with Jake, raised his hand. "I made some observations about their biology. Their crystal bodies are very strong, but they might have weaknesses too." President Walsh leaned forward. "What kind of weaknesses?" "Crystals can break if you hit them with the right sound frequency. Like when an opera singer breaks a wine glass with her voice. If we can find the right frequency, we might be able to hurt them." General Parker looked interested. "How do we find this frequency?" "I need time to study the recordings from our meeting with them. But I think the answer might be simpler than we expect." Senator Thompson was sweating now. "Even if we can hurt them, we still cannot win. They have too many ships. We should surrender and hope they treat us well." "There is no treating slaves well," said Admiral Blake. "I have studied every war in human history. The side that gives up without fighting always suffers more than the side that fights back." Maria Santos, the representative from the Mars colonies, spoke up. She was a young woman with fire in her eyes. "My people did not leave Earth and build new worlds just to become slaves to aliens. We will fight." President Walsh stood up. "The question is not whether we will fight. The question is how we will fight." "Admiral Blake, what are options?" Admiral Blake pressed a button, and the screen showed a map of the solar system. "We have defense platforms around Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt. We have mining ships that can be turned into weapons. We have 8 billion people who will not go quietly into slavery." "But can we win?" asked Senator Thompson. "I don't know," Admiral Blake answered honestly. "But I know we can make them pay. A price they never expected to pay." Jake Morrison spoke up. "There's something else. When I told their leader that we would not surrender, he seemed shocked. I don't think anyone has ever said no to them before." "What do you mean?" "President," Walsh asked, "I think they have conquered so many worlds that they forgot what it's like to fight people who refuse to give up. They expect us to be afraid. They expect us to surrender. They don't know what to do with people who fight back." Dr. Rogers was writing notes on his computer. "That gives me an idea. What if their weakness is not just physical? What if they are also weak mentally? What if they have never learned to fight an enemy that refuses to quit?" General Parker smiled for the first time that day. "Every bully is weak inside. That's why they have to bully people." The meeting continued for 6 hours. They made plans for defense, plans for evacuation, and plans for fighting. But the most important moment came when President Walsh asked a simple question. "If the aliens demand an answer, what will we tell them?" The room was quiet. Everyone knew this was the most important decision in human history. Admiral Blake stood up. "We tell them that Earth does not bow to tyrants. We tell them that humanity chooses freedom over slavery, even if freedom means death. All in favor?" President Walsh asked. Every hand in the room went up, even Senator Thompson's, though his was shaking. "Then it's decided," President Walsh said. "We fight." 3 days later, a Zephyrian ship appeared near Earth. It was smaller than the ships Jake had seen, but still bigger than anything humans had built. Admiral Vextara's voice came over the radio, speaking to all of Earth. "Humans of the primitive world called Earth, your time is up. Supreme Chancellor Kilvith demands your answer. Will you surrender and become subjects of the Empire, or will you be destroyed?" President Walsh had prepared for this moment. He sat in the communications center, with cameras broadcasting his words to every human in the solar system. Behind him stood Admiral Blake, General Parker, and Jake Morrison. "Admiral Vextar, President Walsh said in a calm, clear voice. "I am President Ryan Walsh, leader of the United Earth Government. I speak for all humanity when I give you our answer." The alien waited. On Earth, 8 billion people watched there. Televisions and computer screens. On Mars, in the asteroid belt, and on space stations throughout the solar system, humans stopped what they were doing and listened. President Walsh looked directly into the camera. His voice was strong and clear. When he spoke the word that would change everything, no. The word echoed through space, bouncing off satellites and space stations, carried by radio waves to every corner of the solar system. On the alien ship, Admiral Vextar was silent for a long moment. "You choose death," he finally said. "We choose freedom," President Walsh replied. "And free people do not surrender to bullies." Admiral Vextar's ship turned and disappeared into space, carrying the news back to the Empire. Earth's answer had been given. In the communication center, Admiral Blake put her hand on President Walsh's shoulder. "Well, Mr. President, we just started a war." President Walsh nodded. "Yes, we did, but we started it on our terms, not theirs." Outside, across the Earth and throughout the solar system, humans began to prepare for the fight of their lives. They did not know if they could win, but they knew they would not lose without making the Empire remember the day they tried to conquer humanity. The word no had been spoken. Now it was time to make it mean something. 2 weeks after President Walsh spoke the word that defied an empire, the first Zephian attack ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. They came in groups of 10, moving fast toward the outer planets. Their plan was simple: destroy the human mining stations and show Earth what happened to those who said no to the Empire. Captain Danny Clark commanded the mining station on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. His station had 300 workers who dug ice and rare metals from the frozen surface. Danny was a quiet man who had spent most of his life in space, but he had never been a soldier. "Captain, we have alien ships coming toward us," reported his communications officer, Jenny Lee. Her voice was tight with fear. 20 ships, maybe more. They'll be here in 6 hours." Danny looked at his crew. Most of them were miners and engineers, not fighters. They had some small defense guns, but nothing that could stop 20 alien warships. "Send a message to Earth Command," Danny ordered. "Tell them the aliens are attacking Europa Station. Then, send another message to all our people here." Jenny sent the messages quickly. Within minutes, Danny was speaking to everyone on the station through the intercom system. "This is Captain Clark. You all know what's coming. The aliens want us to surrender or die, but I have a different idea." Danny paused, thinking about President Walsh's words 2 weeks ago. "We're going to tell them the same thing our president told them. We're going to say no." In the station's main hall, 300 miners and engineers looked at each other. They were scared, but they were also angry. These aliens wanted to make them slaves or kill them just because they were human. Dr. Ben Rogers had sent his research about alien weaknesses to all human stations. He had discovered that certain sound frequencies could hurt the crystal aliens, especially when many humans made the sounds together. "Listen carefully," Danny continued. "Dr. Rogers found out that our voices can hurt them. When I give the signal, I want everyone to shout one word as loud as they can. The word that started this war. The word that means we will never give up." The alien ships arrived exactly 6 hours later. They were sleek and beautiful, but they carried death in their weapons. The lead ship sent a message to Europa Station. "Human mining facility. This is Battle Commander Zekref of the Imperial Fleet. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Danny sat in his command chair with his crew around him. He opened the communication channel so the aliens could hear him. "Battle Commander, this is Captain Danny Clark of Europa Station. We represent free human beings who will not bow to tyrants. You "Are miners, not soldiers," the alien replied. "You cannot fight us. Surrender, and you will live as workers for the Empire." Danny smiled, even though he was scared. "We have something to tell you, Commander. Something no one has ever told your Empire before." "And what is that?" Danny looked around at his crew. Jenny Lee nodded at him. The chief engineer, Bob Martinez, gave him a thumbs up. All around the station, 300 humans prepared to speak with one voice. "No," Danny said clearly into the microphone dot at the same moment. 300 voices shouted the same word throughout the station. "No." The sound traveled through the station's hull and out into space through their communication systems. It was picked up by the alien ships, and something amazing happened. The lead alien ship began to shake. Its lights flickered, and sparks flew from its crystal hull. The other alien ships also began to have problems. Their perfect formation broke apart as the ships lost control. "What is happening?" Battle Commander Zekrath's voice came through the radio, but now it sounded scared instead of proud. Danny could not believe what he was seeing. Dr. Rogers had been right. The human voices, all saying the same word at the same time, were somehow hurting the alien ships. All stations repeat the word. Danny shouted to his crew, "Keep saying it." "No, no, no." The voices echoed through Europa Station and out into space. The alien ships were in real trouble now. 3 of them crashed into each other. 2 more lost power completely and began drifting. The rest tried to run away, but their engines were not working properly. Within an hour, the attack was over. Half of the alien ships were destroyed or badly damaged. The other half had escaped, but they were clearly beaten. Danny sent a message to Earth Command immediately. "This is Europa Station. The alien attack has been stopped. Repeat, we have won the first battle." The news spread across the solar system faster than any government broadcast. On Mars, in the asteroid belt, on space stations and ships everywhere, humans heard the incredible story. A small mining station had defeated 20 alien warships just by saying no. War correspondent Julie Anderson was on Mars when the news arrived. She had been a reporter for 15 years, covering stories all over the solar system. But she had never covered a story like this. "This is Julie Anderson reporting from New Berlin, Mars," she said into her camera. "Today, 300 miners proved that the human spirit cannot be conquered. They showed the galaxy that free people will fight back, no matter how scared they are." Her report was broadcast to every human settlement. People watched as she interviewed miners from Europa Station through video link. "How did you know it would work?" Julie asked Danny Clark. "We didn't know," Danny replied honestly. "But we knew that saying yes to slavery was worse than dying as free people. So we said no, and somehow that was enough." But the victory at Europa Station was just the beginning. News of the defeat reached the Zephyrian Empire quickly, and Supreme Chancellor Kilveth was furious. 20 ships defeated by miners? He screamed at his generals. How is this possible? War Master Kethver, the Empire's greatest military leader, studied the reports from the battle. He was a huge alien with scars covering his crystal body from 100 victories. "The humans have discovered something about our biology," he said. "Their voices affect our neural networks. But this is just one small trick. We will adapt." Chancellor Kilveth activated the emergency protocols that had not been used for 300 years. "Send the death fleets. Send them all. These humans think they can resist the Empire with mining equipment and loud voices. We will show them what real power looks like." Across the Empire, massive fleets began moving toward Earth. Ships that had conquered worlds and destroyed entire civilizations now had one target: the small blue planet that had dared to say no on Earth. Admiral Susan Blake watched the reports coming in from their spy satellites. The alien fleets were huge, bigger than anything humans had ever seen. How many ships? President Walsh asked. Over 3,000, Admiral Blake replied. More than we thought they had. General Parker studied. The tactical displays. They're not taking any chances this time. They want to crush us completely. But something else was happening across the solar system. The victory at Europa Station had changed everything. Humans who had been scared were now angry. Mining ships were being turned into weapons. Civilian vessels were being armed with whatever guns could be found. Most importantly, humans everywhere were practicing the word that had won the first battle. In schools, in factories, in homes and offices, people were learning to say no together with one voice. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, was preparing the defense fleet when he received a message from Dr. Rogers. Admiral, I understand what really happened at Europa Station. It's not just the sound frequency. It's the unity. When humans speak together with the same purpose, the same determination, it creates something the aliens have never faced before. What do you mean? Jake asked. I think we're more dangerous when we're united than when we fight alone. The aliens rule by making people afraid and separate. But when we stand together and refuse to be afraid, we become something they cannot understand or defeat. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the approaching alien fleets. 3,000 ships against 57. The odds were impossible, but something told him that numbers might not matter this time. Doctor, can you teach every human in the solar system to say no at exactly the same time? I think so. But it would have to be perfect timing, and everyone would have to mean it. Jake smiled. Doctor, you just gave me an idea that might save us all. The greatest battle in human history was coming, and it would be won or lost with a single word. The Zephyrian Death Fleets arrived at the edge of the solar system like a storm of metal and crystal. War Master Kethver commanded the largest military force in Empire history from his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. 3,000 ships spread across space in perfect formation, each one capable of destroying entire cities. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the enemy fleet approach from his command ship, the UES Liberty. Around him, 57 human vessels waited for the battle that would decide the fate of their species. The ships were smaller than the alien vessels, but each one carried a crew that had chosen to fight rather than surrender. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, Jake spoke into his communication system. Today we fight not just for our lives, but for the right of free people everywhere to say no to tyrants. On Earth, Dr. Ben Rogers worked frantically in his laboratory. He had spent 3 weeks perfecting what he called Project Harmony. Every human settlement in the solar system now had special transmitters that could synchronize voices across millions of miles of space. The timing has to be perfect, Dr. Rogers explained to President Walsh through video link. Everyone must speak at exactly the same moment, or the harmonic effect won't work. President Walsh sat in the command center deep under the White House. Around him, the leaders of every human colony watched the approaching battle on their screens. How many people do we need? Everyone, Dr. Rogers replied. Every person who can speak from Earth to the outer colonies. 8 billion voices speaking as one. On Mars, Governor Paul Martinez gathered his people in the Great Dome of New Berlin. The colony had 2 million residents, and all of them knew their voices might be the difference between freedom and slavery. When Admiral Morrison gives the signal, Paul told the crowd, we will speak with one voice. We will speak the word that defines us as free human beings. In the asteroid belt, mining stations and ore haulers formed a rough defensive line. Captain Rick Davis commanded a converted cargo ship with mining lasers instead of proper weapons. His crew was made up of miners and engineers who had never fought in a war. Are you scared? Asked Chief Engineer Helen Ward, a woman who had spent 20 years moving rocks in space. Terrified, Rick replied honestly. but I'd rather die free than live as a slave. War Master Kefver studied the human formations from his command chair. The crystal alien was 8 feet tall with scars from countless battles. He had conquered 47 worlds for the Empire, and humans would be number 48. Their ships are pitiful, he told his officers. This will be over quickly. But Chancellor Kilveth had given him special orders. Do not underestimate them again. They have some kind of sound weapon. Kill them all before they can use it. The first wave of alien ships moved forward, weapons charging with deadly energy. They planned to destroy the human fleet before any voices could be raised. In defiance, Admiral Morrison watched the enemy ships approach. The aliens were fast and their weapons were powerful, but they were about to learn something important about humanity. All human forces, this is Morrison. Today we show the galaxy what happens when free people fight back. Prepare for battle. The space battle began with flashes of light that could be seen from Earth. Alien ships fired their crystal weapons, while human vessels fought back with everything they had. Mining lasers, cargo missiles, and old military guns filled space with deadly energy. The human ship Defiance, commanded by Captain Amy Johnson, took a direct hit from an alien cruiser. Half her crew was killed instantly, but Amy kept fighting. With her engines damaged and her weapons failing, she did something the aliens did not expect. She rammed her ship into the alien cruiser. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness of space. The alien fleet hesitated for a moment, surprised by the human willingness to die rather than retreat. War Master Kefver growled in anger. They fight like wild animals, no civilization, no honor. But the battle was going badly for humanity. Their ships were outnumbered 60-1, and alien weapons were destroying human vessels faster than they could fight back. Admiral Morrison's flagship took heavy damage, and half the human fleet was already gone. On Earth, President Walsh watched the battle reports with growing fear. How much longer can they hold out? Not long, Admiral Blake replied. We need to use Project Harmony now, or we won't have any ships left to protect. Dr. Rogers checked his equipment one last time. The transmitters are ready. Every human settlement is connected. When Admiral Morrison gives the word, 8 billion people will speak together. In space, Jake Morrison's ship was burning in half. His crew was dead. Around him, the remains of the human fleet fought desperately against overwhelming odds. The aliens were closing in for the final attack. Jake opened a channel to every human in the solar system. His voice was calm despite the explosions around him. People of Earth, Mars, and all human settlements, this is Admiral Morrison. The moment has come. When I count to 3, every person who can speak will say the word that started this war. The word that means we will never surrender. 1. On Earth, 8 billion people stopped what they were doing and prepared to speak. In hospitals, sick people sat up in their beds. In schools, children put down their books. In offices and factories, workers gathered around their radios. 2. On Mars, 2 million colonists stood together in their domes and habitats. In the asteroid belt, miners floated in zero gravity, ready to add their voices to the greatest chorus in human history. 3. No. 8 billion human voices spoke the word at exactly the same moment. The sound traveled through space on radio. Waves, quantum transmissions, and electromagnetic fields. It echoed from Mercury to Pluto, from Earth's moon to the farthest mining station. The effect on the Zephyrian fleet was immediate and devastating. Every alien ship began to shake as the harmonic frequency disrupted their crystal bodies and neural networks. Weapons powered down, engines failed, and communication systems went dead. War Master Kefver felt the sound hit his ship like a physical blow. The crystal walls of his command room began to crack and 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the Great Assembly Hall on the planet Zephyr Prime, former capital of the collapsed empire. The Crystal Palace that had once housed Supreme Chancellor Kilveth now served as the meeting place for the newly formed Galactic Freedom Alliance. Representatives from 47 different species sat in chairs designed for their various body types. The Valerians, tall blue beings with silver eyes, sat next to the insect-like Korthik and the peaceful plant people called the Sylvani. All of them had one thing in common. They had been slaves of the Empire, and now they were free. Jake wore his best uniform, but he felt strange being called a hero. He was just a ship captain who had done what seemed right at the time. The real heroes were the 8 billion humans, who had spoken with one voice when freedom hung in the balance. President Walsh sat at the main table with other human leaders. Next to him was Dr. Ben Rogers, whose research into harmonic frequencies had made their victory possible. The scientist looked tired, but happy as he watched former enemies working together to build something new. "The old empire is finished," announced Valandra, the leader of the Valerian Republic. She was a tall, graceful being who spoke in musical tones. 43 worlds have declared independence. The remaining Zephyrian territories have surrendered or joined the alliance. Emperor Zilkith, the new leader of what remained of the Zephyrian people, stood slowly. He was much smaller than the war leaders Jake had met before, and his crystal body was cracked with age. When the old empire fell, the surviving Zephyrians had chosen him because he had always spoken against the war. "My people ask forgiveness," Zilkith said in a voice like breaking glass. "For 1,000 years, we believed that strength meant making others weak. The humans taught us that true strength comes from lifting others up, not pushing them down." Jake stood up to respond. All eyes in the hall turned to him, beings from dozens of worlds waiting to hear from the human who had helped end the empire's reign of terror. "Emperor Zilkith, we do not ask you to beg for forgiveness. We ask you to help us build something better. The empire is dead, but the idea of freedom must live on." The crowd in the hall applauded with sounds ranging from human clapping to Korthik, clicking to Valerian humming. It was the sound of hope. But not everyone was happy with the new peace. In a dark room on a distant world, War Master Kethfer met with other Zephyrian military leaders who refused to accept defeat. His crystal body was covered with scars from the harmonic attack that had destroyed his fleet. "The Empire cannot end like this," Kethfer growled to his followers. "We ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. We cannot let primitive humans and their alien friends take that away from us." General Kekstar, another survivor of the Great Battle, showed his agreement by changing his crystal color to deep red. "What do you propose, War Master? We rebuild in secret. We find new weapons that cannot be stopped by human voices. And when we are ready, we take back what belongs to us." But their plans would never succeed. On Earth, Dr. Rogers had not stopped working after the victory. He had spent the last 6 months studying the recordings of humanity's great shout, and he had discovered something amazing. "The harmonic effect is still spreading," he explained to Admiral Blake in his laboratory. "Every time the story of our victory is told, every time someone says the word no with real determination, it creates tiny harmonic waves that spread through space." Admiral Blake looked at the data on Dr. Rogers' computers. "What does that mean?" "It means that the idea of resistance itself has become a weapon. Every being in the galaxy who refuses to be a victim, who stands up to bullies, who says no to tyrants, is making the universe a little bit safer for everyone." The proof of this came when Kethfer tried to attack a human colony ship near the edge of the galaxy. He had rebuilt a small fleet using hidden resources and planned to show the galaxy that the Empire could still strike fear into its enemies. But when his ships attacked the colony vessel Hope's Dawn, something unexpected happened. The human colonists, led by Captain Lisa Green, did not panic or surrender. Instead, they did what humans had learned to do when facing bullies. "This is Captain Green of the colony ship Hope's Dawn," she broadcast on all frequencies. We carry 15,000 families looking for a new home. We are not soldiers, but we are free people, and free people do not bow to tyrants. Then she and her 15,000 colonists said the word that had ended an empire. No. The harmonic effect was smaller than the great shout that had defeated the Death Fleets, but it was still powerful enough to disable Kefver's ships. Within hours, Alliance rescue vessels arrived to capture the war criminals and help the colonists continue their journey. Kefver was brought to trial on Earth, where he faced judges from 12 different species. When asked if he had anything to say before sentencing, the former War Master spoke in a voice full of defeat. "I do not understand you humans. We had superior technology, superior numbers, superior strategy. How did you defeat us?" Judge Maria Santos, the former representative from Mars who now served on the Galactic Court, looked at the broken alien with something that might have been pity. "You never understood the most important thing about intelligent beings," she said. "We are not just bodies and brains and technology. We are spirits that cannot be conquered by force. You could destroy our ships, you could threaten our lives, but you could never make us stop being who we are." Kefver was sentenced to life in prison, where he would have time to think about the difference between ruling through fear and leading through respect. 5 years after the war ended, Jake Morrison returned to Earth for a special ceremony. The United Nations had built a simple monument in New York, near the building where humanity had first decided to resist the Empire. The monument was made of black marble with words carved in every human language, as well as the languages of 47 allied species. But the message was simple enough for any child to understand. In memory of those who thought one word could not change the galaxy, it can, it did, it will again. President Walsh, now an old man with gray hair, spoke to the crowd gathered for the ceremony. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had come to honor the moment when a small blue planet had changed the course of galactic history. "Today we remember that freedom is not something that can be given to you by others," President Walsh said. "Freedom is something you must claim for yourself and defend with your own voice, your own courage, and your own determination to never give up." In the crowd, children from Earth and dozens of other worlds listened to the speech. They had grown up in a galaxy where slavery was illegal, where bullies faced the united opposition of free peoples, and where the word "no" was taught in schools as the most important word in any language. Jake Morrison, now retired from the military, worked as a teacher at the Galactic Academy on Mars. His students came from species that had once been enemies, and they all learned the same lesson that humanity had taught the galaxy. "The strongest weapon is not a gun or a bomb or a warship," Jake told his class of young beings from a dozen different worlds. "The strongest weapon is the courage to stand up to those who would make you afraid, and to say one simple word when they demand your freedom." A young Valerian student raised her hand. "What word, Professor Morrison?" Jake smiled, remembering the day when that word had echoed across the solar system and brought down an empire. "No," he said simply. "Just no." The galaxy was a different place now. Species that had been enemies worked together to explore new worlds and build new civilizations. The old empire's technology was shared freely among all peoples, and conflicts were settled by talking rather than fighting. But most importantly, every child in the galaxy grew up knowing that they had the right to refuse, the right to resist, and the right to say no to anyone who tried to take away their freedom. The Empire had thought that humans were weak because they preferred peace to war. They had learned too late that peaceful people could be the most dangerous enemies of all when they finally decided to fight back. And across the galaxy, on worlds both old and new, children went to sleep each night knowing that freedom was not just a word in a book, but a promise that had been kept by 8 billion voices speaking as one. The word that had ended an empire would echo through the stars forever.